Hey everybody, I just wanted to go over the guidelines for the PowerPoints. It's easier to do it like this than to uh, draw out the things that I would say if we were in a lecture course. So what you're creating is a minimum of 9 to 12 slides. Most students, I think the average is probably about 14, 15 slides for those that turned into my class. Um, and the idea is for you to pick a topic, and then what you're going to do is make a PowerPoint instead of a research paper. I feel like this is going to be better for you once you get out into the workforce because you're more likely to make a PowerPoint for a presentation as opposed to write a research paper for a presentation. And so, but I want you to think about this PowerPoint is not a traditional PowerPoint that you would see like in a lecture where all you see is bullet points. What you're going to see is a basically like a research paper that's put into a PowerPoint. So you can use bullet points but they will be like you be data points and an explanation. So uh, both what I'm looking for in the actual content of your PowerPoint is that you're going to back up whatever argument you're making with data. So I'm looking for data in aggregate. I don't want opinion. So this is, think of this as a professional paper also. So it's not going to be I feel this way. It's not going to have you in there. It's going to be all in third person, just like a professional paper would. Um, we'll get into like the actual content of it here in a second, but you'll be using APA format. With an APA, when you go to the Al Purdue website, it's OWL and it stands for the Online Writing Lab, and it's out of Purdue. And if you just Google that and just Google Al Purdue, and you'll come to that website and then click on the part that says APA format, and you'll notice that it's more geared towards paper, like writing a paper. But what you're doing is taking the cover page and then also your in-text citations and your reference sheet. That's the part of APA that needs to follow, or that this PowerPoint needs to follow. So your in-text citations, it's farther down this paper that we'll get to in a second. But just remember that in-text citations and a reference page. Make sure you have both of those because that's the first thing that I look at. So and it has to have both because if it has just one or the other, then it's an automatic zero because there's nothing for me to go off of. So you need the in-text citations in the body of the PowerPoint. Then also you need the reference slide that I can refer to at the end. We'll talk about that more in a second. This part right here is kind of confusing, but you're only creating one document. So if you're creating PowerPoint and you're calling it XYZ, then you're taking document XYZ and you're uploading it to two different Dropbox folders. One of them is communication, the other is critical thinking. This is the information. How you do on this is what we end up turning into, that we keep track of, and then look at it over all the rest of the sections of Texas government. And so uh, this is like you turn it in isn't really that's you don't have to worry about that part. But this is easier for you because before there were basically multiple research assignments that you had to do for one class, and so that was a lot of work for y'all, and it was kind of overkill. So this is the way that we figured out a way for you to be able to create one research assignment, but it's actually being graded twice. So I have to grade your document XYZ with one rubric that I'll show you in a second, and then a second rubric right here. So you're taking document XYZ, uploading it to one Dropbox, and then uploading it to the other. Make sure that when you upload it, that you upload it to both of them, because I grade communication all at one time and I grade critical thinking all at one time. And so it's important for you to do both because I don't, it's not like I'm looking at the grade book and I can say, oh, well, they just forgot to upload it, so I can do it. I'm grading so many at the same time that I won't notice if one is missing from one Dropbox. So if for whatever, and these are 20 together, they're 20%. So if you miss one of them, if you don't upload one of them, that is 10% off of your final grade right off the bat. So make sure that you upload to both Dropboxes. The prompt for it, what is the role of the people in the Texas political system? So the elements that you're actually addressing with your topic are what are the role of public opinion, interest groups, political parties, state election. You can see all this part right here. And so what you're doing is you're picking a side of an argument. So for like Texas, something good would be Texas is being solid red. They're very they want to build this. Talk about the wall. So if you want to argue for or against the wall, that's one topic that you could do. And so what you're doing, think of this PowerPoint as a case study of your topic. So, what is the role of public opinion? So, how does the public feel about building the wall? I think the last time I checked, the polling was that only 25% of people feel that it's an emergency to where we need a it's an emergency to where we need to build a wall. I think the was what two thirds. I believe 2/3 of people oppose the wall, and so there are different questions they can ask. So this one can get kind of big because depending on what you ask, you're going to get different numbers. And so that would be an example of what you're doing for that. And when you're doing this, when you give me these data points, when you're talking about, this poll said this or this poll said that, one, make sure it's a legit poll. But also tell me what that means. So you have to assume that I know nothing about your topic. I'm not, you know, assume that your target reader does not know anything. So I'm not your professor for the course, but I'm a dude off the street who does not have any clue what you're talking about. Interest groups. So are there interest groups for whatever topic you decide to do that are advocating for or against your position? So uh, what's a good example? If you're doing legalization of marijuana, that's a good one. Because there are interest groups that are pushing for the legalization and pushing against it. So there are tons of reasons why people would want to, and there are tons of reasons why, or certain people that would want to invest money in interest groups to try to make sure that it stays illegal. So one would be the private, those that benefit from private prisons. So if they want to make sure that the jails stay full to the point that there's a need for private for-profit prisons, then those are going to be advocating to keep it illegal. Because if it's legal, that's a lot of people out of the jail system. Um, Political parties. So is it a political issue to where one party's for it and one party's against it? So a good example of that would be if you were to do gerrymandering in Texas. Texas is always known for trying to gerrymander so that a certain party is stays in power. That's become an issue quite a few times over like the last 100 years. So you could talk about that. So which parties generally gerrymander and which parties do not. Then you could bring up specific examples of when we've been in the news for doing that. State and local election process. So where do we sit with your issue? So is this if you're to use the wall as an example. So what are the processes that are going along with building the wall? So building the wall is, we're working on uh, you could talk about if you're against building the wall, then you would be talking about how the government is using eminent domain to seize private land. You could talk about that. Rights and responsibilities of citizens. So what can citizens do? How can they get involved in whatever topic you decide? Key issues and policies and political culture. So this is where you would talk about what are the extenuating circumstances. So if you are doing legalization of marijuana again, then you're talking about what are the issues that would come about. So you could talk about legalizing it just for medicinal purposes. You could talk about like CBD oil, like the cannabidiol, putting it in gummies, things like that. But with the THC compound taken out, that's one of the things that people are talking about. So you could talk about the extenuating circumstances and the key issues surrounding it. Remember, this is for you to choose, but you have to pick a side. So I'm not looking for a pro and con paper. You are arguing. Imagine that you're sitting and having a political conversation with someone. You are arguing your side. You're trying to make them feel the same way about an issue that you do. So whatever it is that you decide, that's what you're arguing that side. We talked about it being a case study. It was a research paper. Let's see. Okay. 9 is 12 slides in length minimum. Like I said, 15 is about the average. Make sure that the information that you write down, both your data points and your analysis, they need to be in the slide itself and not the note section. I don't look at the note section. For some of them, it's hard to pull it up. So that's more for if you were given a lecture yourself for you to be able to leave yourself notes. But for your PowerPoint, I want all the information in the slide itself because nothing else will be seen. APA format, we'll talk about that in a second. Make sure don't use first or second person. Al Purdue website. So if you just Google Al Purdue right there, you'll be able to find it. Proper grammar and punctuation. So even though I say 10 points on basically any rubric you're going to see, uh, think about it in terms of you getting your message across. So while it may look like only 10 points, remember that if you haven't gone through and done just like a basic spell check or a basic grammar check, like all the Microsoft programs, they tell you like whenever something's spelled wrong or each one of the squiggly lines means something different. And so if you haven't gone through that and fixed that, then each one of those is something that's going to stop me from being able to see your message. So if I'm reading your PowerPoint, I'm having to stop every 2 seconds because I don't know what you're trying to say, then obviously more points are going to be taken off. So make sure that you're getting it in front of as many people as you can. If you have friends, you have family that would read over it for you. We have the writing lab here on campus. That is a great resource. If you go to them, make sure that you go in asking specific things. So if you're worried, it's like, I'm not a great speller, I'm not this, this are opportunities that I have that, to be able to get better. And, just need you to look over for this. Don't go in there and throw the PowerPoint on the table and say, yeah, can you fix it for me? That's not what they're there for. So make sure you go in with specific things that you would like them to go over with you. Let's see. Just no plagiarism, obviously. Make sure no recycled papers. So you can't, if you did one for a different government class or any other class, like a history class or something like that, then, make sure you're not using the same one because it'll show up in turnitin.com. In-text citations. No in-text citations or no reference sheet is an automatic 0. So make sure that, and that's, put together, those are 20% of your grade. So that is a big deal. Make sure you use 3 scholarly sources. So make sure that your sources are legit so that the media bias chart that I showed you, look for, if you're going to use an article, make sure you're going to the root source. But if you're looking for information, try to stay away from the ones that are on the fringe left or the fringe right. For in-text citations, look at these right here. So the 2 things that I'm looking for are the last name. I'm talking kind of fast because this thing shuts off at 15 minutes. But the last name of the author or authors and the year of publication. So somewhere in that sentence, that needs to be there. And so here you can see the authors in the sentence. So the sentence is, Jones performed a detailed study on children's eating habits. So the year of publication had to be in parentheses. Here you had nothing. The study examined children's eating habits. Nothing is in the sentence itself, so you had to put both in parentheses. And then here you had both in the sentence, so nothing's needed in parentheses. So vary your format up just to make it easier to read, but that is what's considered an in-text citation. But if you look at the Al Purdue website, it does a great job of telling you how different types of sources should be cited. Writing lab, we already talked about making sure you put it in both drop boxes. Here's the general rubric that I use. So when I'm looking at communication, I'm looking for, how visual is it? Is it pleasing? Did you use like transitions? Did you use headings? Just anything to make it easier to read. Here you've got the key elements that we were talking about, APA standards. And then for the other rubric, the second time I grade it, this is what I'm looking for. So this is the actual analysis. So when you put your key points in there, that's a big deal. But also I'm looking for your actual, now what does that mean? So you can't just put a bunch of data points on there and expect me to understand, because remember, I don't know anything about your issue. So you're telling me what that actually means. And then analysis, make sure you got a thesis statement in support of your conclusion. So you're arguing something and you're presenting it with your data points and then with your actual critical thinking analysis. So hopefully I'll have, if you have any questions, email me, but hopefully just think of the confusing part is wrapping your head around making sure that you're writing a research paper into a PowerPoint and that you're your topic that you choose regarding the Texas, some aspect of the Texas political system, is addresses these elements. So it's a case study of your topic.